Hi, I'm Judy. I'm going to be doing my negative debate against Taylor for her implicit bias training debate. So here I go. Um, Taylor's um, Taylor's points were their resolution for their group was the United States federal government should substantially increase the regulation of state and/or local police misconduct in the United States. They defined police misconduct, bias, and racial profiling. Their type of resolution is a policy resolution. They will be advocating for change in the status quo. And their criterion for this round is cost-benefit analysis. So to start, status quo. Their first article was officers need to be aware of their bias. The article said that the legislation, if enacted, would ensure all law enforcement officers receive appropriate training, not just the new recruits. It also says that law enforcement officers should be required to recertify these skills as part of their continuing training requirements and demonstrate competency in profiling prevention throughout their careers. This same article also says that it's going to cost about $4 million every 2 years. So for this one, because the argument was that officers need to be aware of their bias, my problem with this is that if they're not already aware of their bias, then maybe implicit bias training will make them more aware of their bias, and therefore they may act on it. If they didn't know it was there before, then maybe it was just in the back of their mind and it didn't affect their work, but maybe if they're thinking about it too much, it'll start affecting their work. Also, we'll get to it later, but the funding seems like a lot from this article. Their second status quo article is everyone has a bias that they can work on, and this article describes implicit bias as the automatic association people make between groups of people and stereotypes about those groups. It says under certain conditions, those automatic associations can influence behavior, making people respond in biased ways even when they're not prejudiced. This also says that while conscious traditional racism has declined significantly in the recent decades, research suggests that implicit attitudes may be better at predicting and/or influencing behavior than self-reported explicit attitudes. So my problem with this statement is that it says conscious traditional attitudes, and again, going back to what I said before, if you make the implicit bias conscious, then it might create the same problems that traditional racism created, and it might just make it even stronger. Police officers might say, well, I believe this way for a reason, or I didn't even know that was there. I guess that's really how I believe. So it could create problems that way. Their plan, mandate number 1, implicit bias training will happen while the officers are in the police academy, and then the training will be reinforced each year after that to keep up with the changing times. Mandate number 2, for those already in force, there will be a training course for 1 month. There will be 2 2-hour classes a week. This will cover what is being taught to the new recruits in the academy. While I do think that it is important to maybe have the training while the police are in the academy, having it during police hours will be costly, not only in just finding the programs and the trainees and all that, but then also you have to think about the hours that they're going to be out of duty but still being paid, because legally they are going to have to be paid for those hours. So also that it's 2 hours twice a week, that seems like a lot of their time that could be better spent maybe out on the force. Their funding, it says the total funding will be about $2 million a year, probably coming from that article. And it says that this will allow for bringing in outside instructors and designating a person to be in charge of all reports that have misconduct. So their plan actually doesn't say where the funding is coming from, so that's definitely a big issue. Um, Next, the enforcement. It says this will be enforced starting with the next academy class once the law is passed. As for the current officers, training will begin as soon as it can be scheduled. So again, I think maybe this is something great to enact with the new law enforcement classes in the law academy or in the police academy, but maybe not for officers that are already out in the force because it's going to be very costly in order to get them trained. For observation 4, solvency, it says implicit bias training improves community life. This article says that positive encounters between police and community members can lead to a better understanding and improved relationships. I definitely think this is true, but I think maybe a good way to do that would be to host like meet and greets or police officers to go to local events or help volunteer at these events for security purposes. I don't know if spending $2 million a year is what they need to be doing in order to improve relationships. Their next article says that making police officers aware of their bias lowers the aggression rates. It says that the mandatory workshops focus on improving officers' understanding of their own biases, implicit and explicit, and this could be detrimental when they interact with students or others. It says that you're able to create a better policing environment when there is a strong message against bias and microaggression, and it lets officers learn how they are perceived. I definitely think those are all positive things. I don't have an argument against those. I think that anyone can help themselves by communicating better with others. So I made all my arguments. That is my conclusion for my negative debate against Taylor. Thank you.